Defense and Development. And the fifth and final one, second unfolding initiative, is the UN Arms Trade Treaty process, which began with a General Assembly resolution in 2006. So with the exception of the Register on Conventional Arms, these are all 21st century initiatives related to the UN. I'll begin with the program of action. The formal title is the UN Program of Action to Prevent, Combat, and Eradicate the Illicit Trade in Small Arms and Light Weapons in all its aspects. And it is arguably the most important global agreement on small arms and light weapons. It was prompted by a more comprehensive view of security, that is, as indicated in its preamble, the wide range of humanitarian and socio-economic consequences of illicit trafficking in small arms and light weapons. It is far from a perfect document. It is a consensus document, so it's not legally binding, for example. It also fails to adequately address the very important issue of civilian possession of small arms and light weapons. It does, however, provide a very important framework for action on small arms at the national, regional, and global levels. And it also has an entire section devoted to implementation, international cooperation, and assistance, which, again, is of some significance to this region. It also importantly recognizes that in order to address the problems of illicit small arms and light weapons proliferation, a collaborative approach is necessary. And in particular, it notes that an important contribution is and can be made by civil society in working with governments to combat small arms problems. With regards to the Caribbean, there has been mixed participation in the UN process related to the program of action to date. As members of the UN, all Caribbean states are politically committed to implementing the UN program of action. But when it comes to actual activity and direct implementation, there hasn't been really the concerted effort that could be called for or should be called for. And in particular, for example, the program of action calls for all states to appoint a national point of contact and to act as a liaison, and to set up a national coordination agency to, within the state, coordinate activities related to the implementation of the program. In the former case, less than half of CARICOM states have set up national points of contact as of 2008 anyway, and only Haiti has established a national coordination agency. That's not to say that CARICOM and other Caribbean states have not been active in program of action sessions in New York. They certainly have been submitting statements, and as recently as the biennial meeting of states in 2008, CARICOM and member states were active. The other point I wanted to make here was the program of action does offer something in terms of what can happen both at the national and, importantly, at the regional level. And in particular, the program of action does call for a binding regional instrument that the Caribbean states could entertain, and to which I'll return later. The Firearms Protocol is formally known as the Protocol Against the Illicit Manufacturing of and Trafficking in Firearms, their Parts, and Components and Ammunition, supplementing the UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime. It's, the significant advantage it has over the program of action is that as part of a UN convention, it is legally binding on states parties. However, Caribbean participation in the protocol is relatively low, and as of this year, only 6 of 14 CARICOM states have ratified the protocol. Fortunately, there is a regional instrument that parallels very closely the firearms protocol in which CARICOM states are far more active, and that is the OAS Convention on Firearms, or formerly the Inter-American Convention against the illicit manufacturing of and trafficking in firearms, ammunition, explosives, and other related materials. It's also known by its Spanish acronym CIFTA. All CARICOM member states have signed CIFTA, and all but Jamaica and St. Vincent and the Grenadines have ratified the treaty. But again, some of the implementation is not there, and only 3 of 10 CARICOM states parties have reported a point of contact for cooperation and information exchange. CARICOM member states are legally bound by CIFTA to implement its requirements, or at least states parties. And importantly, because CIFTA requirements overlap with many of those of the program of action, if there was full implementation of CIFTA by CARICOM states, then it would go a long ways to dealing with the same issues in the program of action and fulfilling those commitments.